Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove. And before we get started with this week's episode, I want to remind everybody that if you can't get enough of the From the Shadows podcast and you want to check out everything we're doing on all of our social media, the easiest thing to do is just go to the FromTheShadowsPodcast.com website. There's links to everything. There's a contact button where you can send me an email if you have a story or a sighting or anything that you want to share. I will read it. I'll get back to you. And maybe you can come on the show and share your story, like today's repeat guest. Before I bring him back, though, I want to remind everybody, the judge and I are going to be at the first annual, well, I guess it's the first. They're hoping it's going to be annual. Mohegan Bigfoot Festival in Loudonville, Ohio on September 20th. And the judge and I, if you want to come down, hang out, Matt Pruitt is going to be there, Larry Seidel, Mark Maitzel, Rob Radabaugh, B. Mills, me and the judge will be in the Loudonville, Ohio Theater at from 2:30 to 3:30 doing a live show. So if you are a listener in the Ohio area or close and you got nothing to do on September 20th, come hang out, come see us at the festival. There's a website we'll be putting up for people that they can go check out the Mohegan Bigfoot Festival. And if you got a story and you want to share it, we're going to, like I said, we're going to talk to eyewitnesses in the theater and do kind of like a live podcast. So if you got any questions, you can reach out to me and we'll point you in the right direction. Okay. So with that being said, we are welcoming back Tommy to the From the Shadows podcast. He had a great Thunderbird story, some great paranormal stories, and he just has a ton more to share from after his time in the military as a police officer and, to the present day. So Tommy, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Shane, I appreciate you bringing me back on.
I appreciate you having enough nerve to come back on and just hang out again. So,
yes, sir.
So the last episode, we ended on a really cool story. You in the military spending the night at one of Saddam Hussein's palaces over in Iraq. So where are we picking up today? Where are we going from today? What are we going from that point or what? What do we got?
I'll bring you to, let's see here, a little bit after I got out of the military. This is around 2014. Around that time, I was doing a lot of hiking and, at that point I wasn't, working anywhere yet or into law enforcement at that time. But around summer 2014, I would always go down to Chikamaga battlefield, which is only about 30 to 40 minutes from my house on top of Suck Creek Mountain. It's like the very top of Georgia. And Chikamaga, if you look it up, it is a horrendous battlefield. It is a great state park if you're going there biking and hiking and stuff like that. But I would always go there and do a lot of hiking, and I would always try and find monuments on their map. I'd always get their map from their check-in station, and I'd always mark off on this map where I've been, what monuments that I like to see or go to, or which one that I like to go to next. And there was this one small trail on their map that I'd never been to, and I believe it was one of the Ohio infantry or maybe Illinois infantry. I can't really remember the monument that I wanted to go to, but so I started walking down the road to get on this other trail to go and find this monument. And I think it was from my vehicle where I stopped on the road to where this monument was. It was, I know, at least 2 miles. So I had to kind of hoofed it to go through a couple little trails off the road and stuff like that. But I remember seeing when I got to this field, there was a hill to my left, and I started seeing these little points on top of this hill. I was like, well, that's got to be the monuments that are up there. So I started going through this field, and then it kind of banks off to a hill to my left, and then a tree line. And I remember this. It was a summer day. It was hot. Wasn't a lot of vehicles or a lot of people biking or hiking out there, so there wasn't really a lot of people that day. So I started getting on top of this hill, and I kind of hugged the tree line because there was a small little trail. It looked like maybe a service trail that I was walking on. I'm pretty sure it was a service trail, but I had walked probably about a mile and a half to this. It was like I said, it's a field on my right, to a little hill that I was standing on, and then a tree line to my left. And I know I had stopped at some point to look at the map to double check or maybe mark it off that what I was seeing or verifying that was a monument. And it was so weird. So all of a sudden, I hear this loud gunfire, and then when I looked to see kind of what was going, it was so close to me. I had seen this smoke, and it was like in a line. It was a white smoke that was in a line, and like immediately I'd hit the deck because I'd like someone's shooting at me or something's definitely firing at me. And when I peeked up to look, the smoke had like formed from like a whitish gray smoke to black smoke, and it just all huddled into one, and then just kind of shot up and like disappeared up in the trees. And I was kind of spooked at that point. I didn't know what was going on. Did someone actually shoot at me on this tree line, or was there a reenactment? Because I was like, well, I'm in Chikamaga. That could have been some sort of reenactment, because what I had heard sounded like not like a regular rifle or nothing like that. It sounded like muzzle loaders, like the actual hammer smacking, the flint, all that good stuff. The sound of a muzzle loader would sound. And no one was there to my left. I didn't see anybody. I got up and I looked around for a second to see if there was anything going on in that field, if there was any vehicles, anything. There was no one there. And it kind of weirded me out a little bit. And I was like, well, let me just go in this tree line here and see if there was anybody out there, or if something made that noise. So I went into the wood line. No one was there. And I started walking a little bit further, kind of adjacent to that little trail or that service trail I was walking, and still no one in sight. And I walked all the way until I got a little bit out of that wood line, and there was a little area where I saw that monument. There was nobody in sight. I had looked around for probably 20, 30 minutes to see if I could find anybody there. I saw nothing. I was like, well, that's kind of weird, kind of paranormal. And I'd got done. I checked off that monument on my map, and then walked all the way back to the truck. And where the parking lot is at the check-in station, there was only maybe 3 or 4 vehicles there. And most of those vehicles were probably people who were out on bike trails, or I know a couple of them probably worked at that check-in station, or as park rangers. But just something odd happened right out of getting out of the military. But
one
of those things.
One of the best. I mean, the Civil War battlefields are some of the best ghost that sort of evidence comes out of those places. I mean, there's video after video and picture after picture of what looks like soldiers or people that just. And I've had a couple people that have actually got audio recording of what you heard, like gunshots or cannons being fired. And it just seems like all that negative or whatever energy it is that got released there is so embedded on that. And it's just running a cycle of, continuous battle, and if you're
That place
lucky
is
or
definitely
unlucky,
haunted.
yeah. I mean, if you're lucky or unlucky enough to, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that'd be
I think
terrible. That'd be terrible though.
I think maybe whatever energy that was, I probably mimicked something in the Civil War, or maybe my colors, because that day I wore a gray shirt, and I remember I had some North Face like grayish or darkish gray, or maybe like a slate covered or colored pants, and I had a hat on and a backpack. So maybe whatever shot or fired, maybe thought that I was, something in their era. That's the only thing I could think of or imagine, why that happened, right next to me. But there's always stories there at a Chickamauga. I remember growing up there, we would always do field trips in Chickamauga and stuff like that. And we'd always hear these ghostly stories and stuff like that, especially like to lure kids and get excited and stuff like that. And there's actually a couple books around Chattanooga that has a lot of, ghostly sites and stuff like that at Chickamauga Battlefield. It's it's an awesome place to go to, but I guarantee you go in there at night, you're going to see something, or you're going to hear something for sure.
I just looked quick, and 35,000 people died.
Yes.
35 to just, I can't even put that into a thought, to think about that many people just losing their life over a short period of time in one place.
I think it was 1863, September 20th, 23rd, around that time frame, during that battle. And they show like the check-in station there has a great place to see maps of like where the north and the south lines were. And plus, if you go into their little history museum, they have all these rifles and pistols and belt buckles and ammunition, cannonballs, everything in this check-in station that you could see. It is a great place, and a lot of history there and a lot of death there. So, I've had a couple other experiences there, hearing a little bit of gunfire, something like that. Me and my wife, we went hiking there when we got married. We went hiking there a lot, and we'd always hear little things out in the woods and stuff. But the biggest thing that happened to me was that gunfire when I was hiking solo, which, it's just one of those things that happened to me.
Yeah, and especially you just getting out of the military, you probably put you on edge immediately.
Oh, absolutely. That had me spooked.
Wow.
Like I said, as soon as that noise, that noise, I hit the deck. I was like, there's something shooting at me, but nothing was there, nothing at all.
I'd love to hear from other people listening if they've had similar experiences in different, even there or any other Civil War or Revolutionary War battlefield. That stuff is super interesting because first, it's part of the history of the country, and it just seems like there's so much energy at those places that nobody's gonna rest.
Absolutely.
Like the Civil War still going on for those spirits to this day. So
that's right. That's right.
This show is not sponsored by the Chickamauga Museum or state park or whatever, national park. We're not sponsored by it. So
all right. So a little bit, same year, 2014, I had got a job as a second shift supervisor for security at Blue Cross Blue Shield. And this is in Chattanooga, by the way. And this the Blue Cross Blue Shield building was actually built on Cameron Hill, and Cameron Hill was another strategic area of the Civil War. So we always heard Cameron Hill was a spooky place or a haunted place, and they developed it when they built this building. So I think a lot of things happened there. A lot of things got disturbed at this building. But I remember working one night. It was super late, and my job as supervisor, most of my security had left at a certain time, so there's only 2 officers working on my shift throughout my shift, and there's 2 or 3 other people that are working for Blue Cross called the SOC, or the Security Operations Center. They monitor cameras, they monitor badging, parking, weather. They monitor everything. So this one night, one of those Security Operations Center guys had radioed me and said, "Hey, can you go check down at the service tunnel? We've got a unsecured door." And my office was, I mean, this first off, this service tunnel is extremely long. I mean, it's like yards long. So I left my office and I went to check out this tunnel. I had to go out of my office outside and then go back into the building. And the service tunnel is the very bottom floor of Blue Cross Blue Shield. And it's almost like a winding tunnel. And normally there's a golf cart in there that you use to travel from one end of the hallway to the other, because there's a couple elevators down in the service tunnel and a couple of stairwells. But I didn't use the golf cart this night. I don't know if it was charged or what, but so I started walking around this hallway or this tunnel. And I remember when I finally got close to this tunnel has 2 doors. They're massive doors. And there's a stairwell to the right of this door, but you can't really see the stairwell until you get up real close to the door, because that stairwell's kind of cut in a little bit. When I was getting closer to these doors, I could obviously see the door is open or had been propped open, and there was this guy, this extremely tall guy, and he's already out of place, because this guy was, taller than the doors. He had obviously came down from the stairwell, and he had a briefcase, and he had this suit, this like extremely tight suit. And no one at this time, though, no one should be at the building. No one should have been there that night. I locked almost all the doors at night, or the security operation can actually lock and barricade doors and stuff like that from their office. And sometimes some of these doors will go, just not get locked, or you have to just shake the doors to make sure their sensors lock. But this door was open at first, or had been propped open. But I see this guy come in right out of the little stairwell, and he didn't look back towards the tunnel, towards me or nothing like that. He just went through the door, and he didn't go through the door. He opened the door and left. And now behind those doors is a parking lot. And there's a couple different levels at the parking lot, or the parking garage. But this guy had to bend down to go under these doors, or the frame of the door. So like I said, he's extremely tall. And I was like, well, it's not too weird. He's in a suit. Maybe he works here. I didn't know. But I went to check it out. I went all the way to those doors, opened them, and into the parking garage there. There was no vehicle there. There was nothing. I was like, well, maybe this guy went up or below one of these garage, the garage levels to get to his vehicle. And I remember I had radioed to to my security operations center guys. I was like, hey, is there still anybody here at this building? Is there still any vehicles? Because they can check vehicles going in and out, because you have to use your badge to, to get in and out of the building itself or the facility, or into the parking garage, or anywhere near. You have to always scan your ID. And they told me no one should be there at all. No one's here. So I checked up and down of that parking garage, no vehicles. That was kind of odd. I was like, well, how did this guy get here? Because you have to walk almost a half a mile to even get to the parking garage. And not just that, you'd have to get up and down the hill. And if you're not driving, you have to get a bus, and we shuttle the bus. We have our own shuttle for Blue Cross Blue Shield. So no one was there that night, period. And I asked them, well, did y'all see anybody on the cameras, on the exterior cameras, to see if anybody was walking? And they radioed me back, and they said, no one's here. I was like, that's odd. I was like, because I definitely saw a guy leaving those double doors downstairs. And we just wrote it off as just an unsecured door. But this guy, it was so weird. I know he didn't have any hair. I guess kind of palish, but weirdly tall and thin. That kind of spooked me after that, which is always weird stuff that happens on the hill. And we always kind of wonder, like, if there's anybody that's going to break into our facility or something like that, or probably someone who is homeless, or, maybe a worker, slept there or something like that and got locked in. But no, no one was there at that building except for the security team, my security team, and the security operation guys. So this guy just vanished. He disappeared.
And that I would think obviously doesn't have anything to do with any kind of Civil War battle. That's just,
I don't think so, because he's in a suit. So,
but nobody else ever reported seeing something crazy like that.
Not of that night.
But I mean, in general, was there stuff that went on that would raise?
Oh yeah. A lot of I always had, if there's like the last people of the building, because they'll sometimes work a little bit over. They always call security and be like, hey, can one of your security guys escort me to my vehicle? They always got spooked down through there, especially through those tunnels and stuff. Now, I didn't stay at that job for, I don't know, maybe a year or so I didn't really get to hear too many of the stories, but a lot of people had told me, this is Cameron Hill. It's definitely an odd building, an odd place there. But I don't think I heard anything about Civil War or nothing like that. But I know Cameron Hill has a lot of history there. I know that for sure.
Jeez, that's a head scratcher right there, because it looked probably. It seems to me like the way you're telling the story, it looks like it was a person, not necessarily a ghost.
Like the image that I saw, if you look at what the Slender Man was, that's what I think I saw. Just this oddly tall, skinny guy and in a suit. Now, I didn't see any expressions on a face, but he didn't look my direction. He just went straight through that door and disappeared. But this guy extremely that tall, who has to duck under those doors and stuff, and he wasn't that far ahead of me. I would have seen this guy, standing out like a sore thumb. But he vanished. He disappeared. He bugged out. So I don't know.
Okay. Well, better you than me.
Right.
It could be us. So, where to next then, now that you dodged that guy?
Let's see here. So, 2019, I had worked in law enforcement for a couple of years at this point. I had many jobs and titles working in law enforcement. I worked at this time. I worked at the booking desk, booking inmates or detainees, stuff like that. And I know this day, I was working on day shift when some of this stuff had happened. One of our road officers had radioed us at the booking desk and said they're going to be bringing in this one detainee who is very combative and is going to have a couple of charges. So, we just did regular protocol. We opened our Sally ports up. We got this guy in. And immediately when I saw this guy, we got him out of the back of the vehicle. The first thing that registered in my head, he looked just like the guy Joker off Batman. He had all these tattoos, this weird grin. I mean, a large grin too, just very weird guy. He didn't really say anything at first when we started searching this guy and getting him ready for booking and the process and everything. I couldn't tell you what his charges were. He had a lot of felonies because he stayed with us for almost a year, I believe. But this guy had just a very odd person, looked, like I said, just like the Joker. He had weird tattoos all over him. He always like snickered and made these weird comments and laughing and stuff like that to nobody. Like, he wouldn't be talking to no one. He would be looking at us, not like that. He always talked to himself out loud, laughed to himself out loud. And he did it with multiple languages. He did it with multiple tones. This guy, he creeped me out. I know, like, when we first got him in, one of our nurses had checked his vitals and stuff like that. His vitals were, for this guy just kind of being fidgety and talkative, stuff like that, his heart rate was just calm. I mean, just a super calm guy. They said he's fine. He's good to get searched and put into one of our cells. So we did all that, and then we did all the paperwork on him, got him booked, processed. We didn't have any incidents on this guy. He didn't try and fight us. He didn't try to do anything crazy at first. But we ended up keeping this guy for a long time. And we started having problems for this guy for a while. He would always, we would see this guy on our cameras doing weird stuff, talking to himself. He would always look to his left or his right, talking to somebody, and he never slept. This guy was, constantly awake until, like, one of our nurses would give him his medicine, stuff like that, and he would sleep for a little bit. But that's the only time he would sleep, is when he would get his medicine from his nurse. And he would always have, when he's awake, he'd be doing these weird walks into the cell. These, like I said, talking in different languages, different tones. Just a very creepy guy. He every time I had to deal with him, the hair on my arm, my neck stood up. He was very, very creepy. And he would always take his feces and he would rub it all over the door and rub it all over the wall. And every time he did that, there was this phrase that he put over this image with his feces. It would say "evil doers." And I took a bunch of pictures of it, because we'd always have to, any type of graffiti and stuff like that, we'd document it. We would write our report up. And then for something like this would happen, we'd have to move him over to another cell and spray it down and get him cleaned up, get him into a shower. And this guy did it constantly. I mean, probably 2 to 3 times a day he would do this. And I know eventually we got him out of our jail. We had extradited him somewhere. I can't really remember. I can't remember his charges. And I'm not going to say his name or nothing like that anyways. But I know while the time he was at our jail, and I took those pictures and stuff, what he would do on the jail cell, the evil doers sign. Weird stuff started to happen to me in my lifetime. I know I don't know how long this started when I had all these pictures and stuff on my phone, and the incident of this guy. But I remember um, me and my wife one night we were out eating Chinese food, and I started feeling weird. I knew something was definitely off. I was definitely off, and it just felt I just wasn't normal. And we were eating at, like I said, this Chinese restaurant, and I asked my wife because it was just something off was going on. I was like, I told her, I was like, am I dead? And she's like, excuse me? I was like, am I dead? Because I felt like I wasn't there at that point. Something was definitely off. And she didn't really say nothing after. She was just freaked out about it. We ate our food, paid our tab, and we left. And she's like, are you feeling okay? I was like, something's definitely wrong. I just don't feel right. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, I don't. It's kind of hard to explain, but I just didn't feel like I was there. I felt I was somewhere else, or myself was like just sucked out of my body somehow. And I remember the next day, went into work. I worked from 5 to 5, so 12 hours. I remember I got to work, and at that morning I had drew tower duty, so I had to work in the tower. In the tower, you watch all these different pods, you watch all the cameras, and you deal with all the doors and stuff, and anything monitoring for a jail. That's what a tower does. And I remember got my briefing that morning. We did the exchange. I took over shift, and I know there was a TV that day in the tower, and it was one of these or these reruns of NASCAR. I remember that was on TV, and I remember the other officer had left. They went home, and I'm sitting in this tower by myself, and that's when stuff really started getting odd, and stuff started like turning negative. I was watching on this TV. Like I said, NASCAR was playing, and it was like something was going in super fast motion on the TV. It was the noise of the race cars just kept going louder and louder, and my heart was going from just regular heart rate to super fast. I could feel the heart beating out of my chest, and I started hearing voices at that point, and not just one or two voices. It sounded like 20 people plus that was in my head. I would hear all these random voices, and these voices were, telling me very terrible things to do and stuff like that. But they were all different people that I knew that were inside of my voice, like friends and workers. I could hear all their voices in my head at once, and laughter, mocking me. It was crazy. I'm not going to tell you all the things that went inside my head at that time, but like I said, at that point, my heart was beating out of my chest. Everything I saw on that TV was going in super fast motion. I remember the cars, that were making laps on the TV were going super fast, and the TV just went to a blur. Like these cars went, and it's so fast on TV, like you would went fast forward or something like it. But we didn't have nothing like that. It was like just some rerun on TV. But everything, it went to like a white noise feeling or a sound, just this weird hum or some sort of tone went inside my head. And I remember I couldn't even feel my heart rate anymore. I couldn't feel my heart, period. And I had freaked out at that point. I remember I panicked because I thought something was something was wrong with me. So I had radioed some of my officers at the booking desk. Hey, I need to take 5 minutes to step out. Like something's going on. And I left the tower. I went outside, took a breather, and I just panicked. I called my wife and woke her up at that point. I was like, hey, something's wrong. I just had to leave the tower because um, my heart rate was going crazy and sporadic, and I started hearing these weird voices and stuff. And um, we talked for a minute. She said, "Well, just try and finish up your work shift, and we'll figure this out." So I finished that day. Um, Nothing ever happened on that shift during that day. I went home. I'd asked my wife. I was like, "We need to figure this out because I don't feel right. Um, Something's very wrong," and we just couldn't figure out what was going on at all. Well, um, I think I'd had either 3 days or 4 day weekend going on at that night or that day when I got off work, and I was like, well, maybe I just need to rest, recharge, and we'll get back to work and everything will be fine. Well, that morning or the next morning, my wife, she went to work. I remember waking up, watching TV, just trying to get my morning routine started that day. And the TV started doing the same thing at my house. And I remember what was watching that day. It was Total Recall that was on the TV. The TV started doing the same thing. It started going faster and spinning faster. And my heart rate started going through the roof. And I started hearing all these voices in my head. And I freaked out at that point. I'd called my wife and I was like, hey, this, whatever's going on, it's happening right now. I was like, I need you to come back home. And she had just got to work at that point, and she turned right around. She told the people she worked with, she's taking the day off. She come back home, and we tried to figure out what was going on when she got home. We couldn't understand it. We was like, well, maybe we need to go to the hospital or go get checked out. I remember we called a couple offices and stuff like that. They didn't have any appointments for what was going on, or tried, we just didn't have any appointments available during that weekend. Everything that everything that was we were trying to go to the hospital to, everything was like 2 weeks out. Can you go on this day or this day? And it was always 2 weeks out. So we had no immediate help trying to figure out what was going on in my brain or physically. So I remember the rest of the day had passed, nothing happened. The next day, same thing happened. She tried to go to work, and the same scenario happened. My heart rate was going through the roof. I'd hear all these crazy voices in my head, and I'd call my wife. I was like, "Hey, like I said, this is happening again." She come back home. We didn't know what to do at that point. We were just completely freaked out. Like, we didn't know what was going on with my body. And I remember during that day, she went somewhere, and I decided to go to the grocery store, which is right down the road from where we worked, or for where we lived. And I'd gotten to the grocery store. I was okay at that point. I'd gotten a couple items to check out, and everything started happening again. Heart rate, voices, and at that point at this grocery store, I started looking around at all these people that were standing there. It was like everyone had stood still, and they all had these weird grins on their face. They were all looking at me. I didn't know what to do but just leave the grocery store. I didn't even buy anything. I got into my car. I know I was crying at that point. I didn't know what was going on. Like my heart rate was crazy. I was sweating. I'd hear all these voices telling me to do all kinds of these terrible things. And I took off from the grocery store. I went back home. I called my wife, and I was completely freaked out at that point. I was like, "Hey, you need to come back home, like right now. Like, something is definitely wrong." And I remember talking to her on the phone for just a couple minutes, And I went back into the house, and immediately going in the house, my dogs did. Normally they greet me. I had 2 dogs at that point, and my dogs they love me. They always sleep with me. They're my dogs. Um, they did not want anything to do with me that day. They had started growling at me. They wouldn't go near me. They had all took off down the hallway. They went up under the bed. They were so scared of me, and I mean, I'd cried and cried. I didn't know what was going on, and I remember I was like, "Well, let me just try and take a shower. Um, Whatever's going on, maybe a shower will help, or so any type of relief." And I remember I turned on the shower, and the mirror in the bathroom got real foggy, and I started to kind of wipe down the mirror, and I could see this distorted face. That huge grin again. I mean, extremely large grin. And I could hear all these voices, and I got so scared. I'd left the house, and at that point, my wife had come home, and she was. I remember she was hollering my name and saying my name, like, "Tommy, what's going on?" And when I'd finally kind of come to, when I was outside, I was in my underwear. Um, I was just in shock. And she said that I was on the phone with her the entire time. And I was like, I wasn't on the phone. I talked to you just a little while ago, and I hung up the phone. And she's like, she still had her phone with her. She's like, I've been talking to you this entire time. And I wasn't. My phone was actually in my car. She had heard all these weird voices and stuff like this that was on her phone. Well, just extremely bad things were happening at that point. So I don't think anything happened later that night. I know the next day I had contacted one of my doctors, who is a friend of mine, and he had me come in and do some lab work. He had thought that I'd got injured at work. Maybe while searching someone, I had gotten stuck with a needle or something like that. He did all the lab work to me. He said, "Your blood work is fine. I don't see anything physically wrong with you." He couldn't figure it out either, and he put in an IV. He put in an IV for me to get hydrated. He said, "Just calm down. We'll figure this out." And I remember his nurse had talked to me for a little bit, and she was getting me all bandaged up and all that good stuff for the IV. And she's like, "Have you ever read the Bible?" And I was like, "No, honestly, I haven't. I've been to church and stuff like that a couple times, but I never fully read the Bible." And she's like, "Why don't you go read that when you go home and see if that helps out?" And I was like, "Oh, well, that's something, that's something that could definitely help out, or trying to figure out what's going on with me." And that night I did. My wife, she had a Bible. She's read it. She knows, everything about the Bible. She gave me, key points to read. And I did that night. I remember I'd read through it, and this one page that I really liked. I read that page over and over and over. And, I felt a little bit of relief. Whatever was going on, I felt a little bit better. And whatever was going on with me at that point had started to taper off. I talked to my wife about it. She's like, "Well, it could be some sort of oppression, an oppression or a possession or something like that." She's like, "Because you work with a lot of bad criminals, you deal with a lot of bad things, and when you started reading the Bible, all this stuff had just completely stopped." And it did. And that's the only thing that that has, I don't know, anything to it makes it realize that all this stuff had stopped, like was reading the Bible. That's the only thing that I know that helped. And it had completely stopped all those weird things that was going on. So that was on 2019. That was definitely a bad time for me. What was going on with me?
So okay, I'm going to ask you about this. So was this guy in jail the whole time where you worked while you were doing this?
Yes.
So,
Everything going on with me, he was there at the jail.
So it almost feels like, as you're telling me this, it's almost like whatever has possession of him is trying to get possession of you. It's kind of like, I mean, that's what's going through my head is the stuff that you're feeling and how everything becomes disoriented. And then you think you're seeing him in the mirror almost, or
that smile, that grin.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to even talk about this. Like this haunts me to this day, and it gets me choked up. Because I never had nothing like this happen to me at that point, but seeing his face, that smile, this guy was, I mean, extremely creepy. That grin, that smile, that I'll never forget it. And I pray to this day, I pray that never happens again. Cause like, I don't know, it's so hard to even talk about this, but, I can't believe it's happening. But, I know at that point I had deleted those photos of, those evil doers. That photo I had, I deleted all those pictures off my phone. I read the Bible. I started praying more, and all this, whatever was going on, had just stopped. It had ceased. And I'm always, anywhere we go, we always have some sort of religious item or Bible with us. Hopefully this never happens again.
Well, I just wanted to point out that they totally misnamed their group. They should have been called the Evil Pooers.
Exactly.
Instead of the Evil Doers.
That was horrible. I mean,
I can't even imagine that. I can't even imagine that.
And we always had to move this guy to another cell and start spraying down the walls and stuff like that. And sometimes he would actually do it in the other cell.
In the time that you're cleaning up his last mess, he would do it again. Wow. Now, did you ever do any research on what evildoers was or meant?
I didn't. I was so afraid for something like this to happen again. I just pushed it past. I put it past me. I was like, I don't want, no more issues or problems with what's going on. I don't know what evildoers is or what it's about, but he always drew with his feces like a doorway, this weird doorway. And it would have, I know, a satanic star and stuff like that. He would always put that behind this door. Like it was almost like if he could draw it with something with this door, he could go through it, or something could go through it, or
something could come. Yeah,
something was going through in and out of the door, and physically he can't go through it. And every time it was with this guy, it was always a different person with this guy. Like I said, he could talk in different languages.
What languages did you hear him speak in?
I know he spoke Chinese. This guy was American. I know he didn't speak Chinese, but he would speak Chinese. I know in Russian, and I don't know if anything else. I mean, he'd spoken a bunch of different language stuff, but I know Chinese and Russian for sure. And I did a little history on this guy. Once we do our stuff with the dispatch, his history, his criminal history and stuff like that. Didn't have any military history. I know before he got to our jail, he was at another jail in a different state. So this guy wasn't. I don't think he was abroad anywhere to get all these different languages and stuff like that. I don't think he, from what I could tell, he'd been in jail most of his adulthood. Like I said, he's got a lot of felonies and stuff like that. So now, could he have gotten all these languages and stuff like that in other jails? Absolutely. But something was always not. He was not always there. He had a lot of mental problems. You could talk to him and ask him questions, stuff like that. He would not answer you straight questions, stuff like that. He had some issues going on with him, but
and they didn't think about putting it like institutionalizing him.
So I think he actually, when he left our facility and we extradited him, I think he went to a mental hospital into another state. I didn't transport him. Wherever he went, I didn't transport him, so I couldn't tell you where he went. But I know where he ended up was with his paperwork and stuff like that. He ended up at a mental facility. So,
wow,
very odd.
And I bet you that's not the only story. You know what I'm saying? I'll bet you there's stories like that from a lot of law enforcement personnel that have to deal with.
Absolutely.
And I mean, it almost, as you're telling me, I'm just like, man, you wonder at what point this guy made a deal with a dark force to be like, hey, you let us use your body and we'll let your soul or whatever get out of this jail, you know?
I can tell you this, though. Immediately when I got this guy out of the vehicle, you could feel it. I mean, you could sense this guy. I mean, it was just pure evil. I mean, you could feel the darkness. Like I said, it still haunts me to this day. Like, I get so freaked out about talking about him and, dealing with stories and stuff like this. Like, I don't want anything to I don't want to get attached on anything or something to get on me. It freaks me the heck out.
I'm sure. Like when it starts affecting you like that, it's where you think you're kind of losing your mind.
And what breaks my heart the most about this is my dogs. They got so scared of me. They wouldn't come around me. They wouldn't let me touch them. They would start growling. Their ears would lay back around me. These are like my morale dogs. I still have these dogs to this day, and I love them to death. They're my children, and seeing them being afraid of me, that broke me. That really broke me. Amongst all the other things, but
you almost wonder if, and this is just a completely, like if you're not going to believe in pure evil or pure or God helping you out or whatever, what if the guy was truly, truly poisoned from something, and that fecal matter, when you went in and cleaned it up and were exposed to it, it's like being exposed to mold or something, and it gets into you and it starts poisoning you, and makes you, hallucinate and stuff.
I know what was weird, 2019 at the sheriff department. I know that year a lot of bad things happened that year. I mean, our team was all our officers in our team, they were not on the same page. We had hired a lot of people, fired a lot of people. We had a lot of things going on that year. And I can't say that everything was great until this guy, but I know this guy did not help in our facility. He was so bad that he didn't even go to a trial. We did not take this guy up to court. I know that I believe our judge had time served his case just to get him out of our facility. had to deal with this guy a lot. Now, we didn't have to fight him or put him in a restraint chair, nothing like that. But it was always with him turning his cell upside down and writing stuff on the wall, eating stuff out of the toilets.
What?
Yes, he would drink and eat his own urine and feces. I mean, just that right there should haunt you.
That, I think that will for the rest of the night. Holy smokes, that's terrible. My hat's off to you, man. You know, and the worst thing is you were in a combat zone.
Yeah.
What's worse, being in a combat zone or coming back and knowing that you got to go every day and deal with that and then take it home with you sometimes?
Like, I think about that a lot. What was worse, in the military, law enforcement, hands down 100%. We dealt with a lot of horrific stuff, a lot of trauma. Now, a lot of people in the military, you're always going to have that kind of stuff going on. But for me, in my case, law enforcement was hands down the worst trauma, and having to cope with it and deal with it with multiple incidents. Not just this, multiple other incidents going on at the jail and on the road and stuff like that. So, law enforcement has definitely left its mark on me.
Jeez, and if I was going to say a joke, it'd be a skid mark. So, but I won't say it. No, that's just awful though. My hat's off to you for going through that and coming out on the other side, because I that would be awful to have to deal with that and know that there's people that there's that little of their humanity left.
Right.
That is what they act, or that is their being, And
I wonder where this guy is now. I don't know if he's at another facility, or I couldn't tell you, but I wonder if he's still, still has mental problems, still doing the same thing. I don't know, but it's curious. It's curious.
Well, I hate to say it, but let's hope he's not out in the general population or in the public. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely not this guy. Because I know the charges that brought him to our jail. I know he was resisting arrest. He had stolen a vehicle. He had fled to another county. I believe he had stabbed somebody. If I remember right, that's his charge and stuff like that. But I won't go into detail and stuff or who this guy is or anything like that. But wherever he is now, I hope he has some help, or I pray for him.
Well, I guess that's a pretty big thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
To pray for him, because that's the kind of person that needs it, because you don't know if he's there on it willingly or unwillingly in that mental or spiritual state.
Absolutely.
Wow. So once you guys get rid of him, anything else crazy happen during your law enforcement days?
Paranormal wise, I believe we always had issues with our. We had, let's see here, 4 cells in our booking area, and a what we call the drunk tank, or a holding tank. And the 4th cell, I know we always had issues with the cameras going off, stuff like that, because I know, let's see here, the early 2000s, there was a lady, she had hung herself in that cell. I believe her name was Sharon or Shanna. I think it was Sharon. I don't know her last name. I don't know who this lady was. I've seen her picture on our computers. I can't really remember her charges and something like that while she was in our facility, but she had ended her own life in that cell, and we always had lights going on and off, camera system shutting down, weird mists on our camera in that cell, doors banging, and we have big metal doors in our jail. So those doors would always shake or bang. We would always say, "It's just Sharon, don't worry about it. It's just Sharon." But we'd have stuff like that going on. And we've had a couple other people that had passed in our jail in the early 2000s, but we would always chalk everything up to it's just Sharon. If a light went out or a camera malfunctioned or if a camera moved, we would always have this one camera on our booking desk that would move. Not often, but if it would be moved, it was always late at night because I worked a lot of night shifts as well. And night shifts there was always pretty spooky, and we would always do this one thing where we would. If we had our cameras malfunction or something like that, we would turn on our intercom to see if we could hear if anyone else was in the building or parts of the building and stuff like that. You would always hear these weird voices and stuff like that on our audio system, or you would hear on the microphone something tapping on the microphone, whatever. Because we had these speaker systems or emergency systems in every cell, almost every hallway, every room. Even in our court, we had our speaker system. And at nighttime, if nothing's going on in the jail, everybody's being good, we would listen on to the audio throughout the jail, and you would hear weird voices and stuff like that going on our PA system. And you would hear these little tappings on the metal that's on our speaker system. You'd hear something tap every now and then. So just weird stuff like that would go on.
Oh, my gosh. Oh boy, yeah, you're right. That would. Hey, maybe that's why that guy was crapping himself so much. Is because of all the stuff. But think about that though. If you're a guy like that who's already obviously mentally unstable, and there is something else going on,
mm-hmm.
and whatever the entity is knows it can maybe communicate with this guy.
They could have, because he was in cell 3. His entire time we kept him in our booking area because we couldn't keep him with our general population. So we had to lock this guy down in our booking area. So where Sharon had hung herself was in the cell 4, our last cell, right next to his cell. And if anyone's in any of our cells, you could always you could hear people and talk to people from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4, 4 to 2, or 4 to whoever. You could always hear and talk to people. But his cell was number 3, and Sharon, she had in her life, she was in number 4.
Imagine if he's here, like she's talking to him.
She could have.
Oh my gosh. No, we're good. Okay. All right. We got to get out of the jail. I want to. I know you got a couple good UFO stories you want to share.
I've got one good one for you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. One good one. I'll take one good one. Let's hear this. I want to now and remind everybody, because I'm assuming is this taking place where you're at now?
Actually, close to where I live now.
Okay.
This is Destin, Florida. Or right next to Destin, I think it's called Niceville, the area that we had saw this UFO. So it was 2020. Me and my wife were on vacation, and we had decided that we need to leave early in the morning, so around 3 or 4 in the morning, because she had to work later on that day, and I had to work the next day. So we had packed everything up super early. It was extremely dark. I think this was it was June. So it was hot. It's miserable. We got everything packed super early. We started driving from Destin, going our route back to Tennessee. And it was this town called Niceville. Niceville, however you say it or spell it. But my wife was going to sleep the entire way because, like I said, she had to work later that afternoon. And I remember I put my phone on her car, had my maps going on, and it was late or early. It's dark, and we're driving through this area where it's kind of like it's a rural area. There's cornfield or soy field to my left. There's some street lamps going on. Nothing like a city or not like that. So not really bright lights, just my car's lights and the street lamps. And I remember my phone started to freak out a little bit. The maps on my phone started to blink out, and it went into this black blob going from right to left on my phone on the screen. And then my phone cut off. It completely just shut off. And I was like, well, that's weird. So I looked up through the windshield because you could see something was going, something was large, and it was, you could just obviously see it. And we started seeing these lights. Well, I started seeing these lights, and it was going clockwise. It was rotating clockwise, and this thing was massive. I mean, it was like the only thing I can describe it as like a floating city. It was extremely huge, this ship. And it had some colorful lights. I don't know what colors they were, but they weren't flashing, but I guess where it was spinning, or the way it was spinning, kind of looked like it was flashing. So at that point, I started pecking on my wife, trying to get her to wake up and shake her to wake up. And I was going to tell her, hey, you need to look at what's going on. But I didn't even have to say anything. She woke up and immediately saw what I saw. And she freaked out to the point she vomited. It spooked her, whatever that was. It spooked her. And I slowed the vehicle down to make sure we could see this thing. And she went to grab her phone to try and record this UFO or whatever, this object. And right when she reached down to her purse to get her phone, it's like the ship had vanished, but it didn't just completely just in a split vanish. It was like it was swallowed into something, or like a shield or something went over it. It had just swallowed up into nothing, and it was gone. And you could just see the stars behind it. And it was a clear night or clear morning. You could see all the stars out and stuff like that. There was no planes, no helicopters, nothing in our area. We didn't have any words at that moment what was going on until we drove maybe a mile or two down the road, and then we just stopped. And then we were like, what the heck was that? I was like, well, I guess that was a UFO. I'm not sure. We marked that location on our maps, and immediately my wife had went through one of these government websites where you can report UFOs or UAPs and stuff like that. And she sent an email out to them that day. This is what happened on this incident, whatever. We never got any response to that government site or nothing like that. No email, no phone calls, nothing. But this object that we saw, it was massive. I mean, something you can't miss, and we were the only ones on that road. And like I said, there was no planes, no helicopters, nothing like that. I don't think we even saw another vehicle until another couple miles down the road. Just this extremely large object floating in the sky, rotating.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to part 2 of our conversation with Tommy about his paranormal experiences. We had a little technical difficulty there towards the end of the interview and got cut off. So we apologize for that, but Tommy did get to pretty much finish his story. So we hope you enjoyed this second interview, and we thank Tommy for coming on and sharing just some really great paranormal experiences with us. So thanks again for tuning in, and hey, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.
God only knows what's hiding